2021. Today we are going to discuss MEG3 Block 3. Okay. MEG3 Block 3, that is on Emily Bronte's Wuthering Height. Okay. Emily Bronte's Wuthering Height. But before we start the novel, I will shed some light on the novel as an art form. I told you in the last class that we will be reading on the different forms of novels, different types of novels. So let's start with novel. The term novel is now applied to any great variety of writings that have in common only the attribute of being extended works of fiction written in prose. So novel is an extended, a long work of fiction written in prose. I hope all of you can hear me. Am I audible to everyone? Just somebody
Yes, ma'am.
please. Okay, thank you. Let's continue. So the term novel is applied to a variety of writing that have in common only one attribute of being extended works of fiction written in prose. As an extended narrative, the novel is distinguished from short story, and from the work of middle length called the novella. Its magnitude permits a greater variety of characters, greater complication of plot, or plots may be, ampler development of milieu, and
Good
more
afternoon, ma'am.
sustained exploration. Good afternoon.
This is Chris Purana, ma'am.
Yes,
Hello.
please join. Yes,
Uh,
you are audible. Okay,
this
please
is
switch off your microphone.
this
Yes,
is Chris
it's audible.
Purana.
Yes,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
are.
This is Chris Purana.
Hmm.
And ma'am, now you have started block 3.
Yes, we are reading Block 3, that is Emily Bronte's Wuthering Height. But
Okay,
before
okay.
we come to the novel, we are discussing novel as
Thank
an
you so
art
much,
form.
ma'am.
What's the meaning of novel? What's the distinction between
Okay.
short story, novella, and novel? Okay. Then what are the different types of novel? After that, we will come to Emily Bronte's Wuthering Height. Okay. Okay, let's start. So novel is a long work of fiction. It is different from short story, which is shorter, and the work of middle length is called novella. Because it has a greater magnitude, means the novel form, it permits a greater variety of characters, greater complication of plot, and ampler development of milieu, and more sustained exploration of characters and motifs. Okay, than these shorter works like short stories or novella. Currently, the term novella or the term novel actually is of in most European languages it is called roman, which is derived from the medieval term romance. The English name for the form, on the other hand, is derived from the Italian novella, literally meaning a new little thing, which was a short tale in prose. But currently, the term novella is used for any prose fiction of middle length, such as Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness or Thomas Mann's Death in Venice. I hope you got the difference between among short story, novella, and novel. So novel is of, please keep your videos, switch off your videos. Please switch off your videos and audios, both. Yes, Madhusmita Panda, please switch off your video. So novel is of longer length, short story is a short one, and a middle length is called what? Novella. Then an important predecessor of the latter novel was the picaresque narrative. Picaresque narrative, which emerged in the 16th century Spain, although the most popular instance was Gil Blas. It was written by a Frenchman, Lee Sage. And picaresque from the word picaro. Picaro in Spanish is for rogue, R-O-G-U-E. So Picaro's fiction is realistic in manner. It is episodic in structure. It consists of, or it is composed of a sequence of events held together largely because they happen to one person. There is no elaborate plot. There is no elaborate plot, and it is episodic in nature, and the episodes or sequence of events held together largely because they happen to one person. For example, Thomas Nernst, The Unfortunate Traveler. Then Daniel Defoe also wrote Robinson Crusoe or Mole Flandre. Both of these are still Picaresque in type, in the sense that their structure is episodic rather than in the organized form of a plot. Please mute your videos, everyone, because there is a connectivity problem. So Defoe is often credited as writing the first novel of incident. In his novels, or like Robinson Crusoe, a series of incident occurs. Then the credit for having written the first novel of character or the psychological novel is almost unanimously given to Samuel Richardson for his Pamela, A Virtue Rewarded, which he published in 1740. Pamela is the story of a sentimental but shrewd young woman who, by prudently safeguarding her chastity, succeed in becoming the wife of a wild young gentleman instead of being his debauched servant girl. So the distinction between the novel of incident and the novel of character, psychological novel, cannot be drawn sharply. But in the novel of, one thing is clear, in the novel of incident, the greater interest is in what the protagonist will do next. I repeat, in the novel of incident, the focus is on what the protagonist will do next, whereas in the novel of character, the focus is on the protagonist's motives for what he or she does, around how the protagonist as a person will turn out. Then, Pamela is also written in epistolary form. Richardson's Clarissa is also written in epistolary form. So, epistolary novel, what's the meaning? Here the narrative is conveyed entirely by an exchange of letters. The characters, they write letters to each other. So the entire novel is in the form of letters, both in Clarissa and in Pamela. That is called epistolary novel. Even Alice Walker's The Color Purple is written in epistolary form. So novels may have any kind of plot form: tragic, comic, satiric, romantic. And Hawthorne talked about two basic types of prose fiction: the realistic novel and the prose romance. We are discussing the different types of novels. So Hawthorne talked about two basic types of prose fiction: the realistic novel and the prose romance. The realistic novel is characterized as the fictional attempt to give the effect of realism by representing complex characters with mixed motives who are rooted in social class, operate in a developed social structure, interact with many other characters, and undergo plausible everyday modes of experience. Uh, a realistic novel focuses on the customs, the conversation, the ways of thinking and valuing of a particular social class. And when it is the focus, it is called the novel of manners. So the novel of manners comes under the realistic novel, and it focuses on the customs, conversations, ways of thinking and valuing of a particular social class, as we find in the novels of Jane Austen. Her novels have been called the novels of manners. Then the prose romance, on the other hand, it has the precursors in chivalry, romance of the Middle Ages, and the Gothic novel of the later 18th century. For example, Walter Scott's Rob Roy or Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. This Wuthering Heights is often categorized under prose romance. And also another special type of romance, the adventure novel. The adventure novel in which the masculine adventure in the newly colonized non-European world is dealt with.
Ma'am,
For
excuse me,
example,
ma'am.
yes,
Excuse me, ma'am. I am a
okay.
new joinee today. I am trying to text a message, but somehow it is getting failed. I cannot text. Ma'am, I am from a different regional center. Can I attend this class?
I think you can. Okay, you can if you want to. Just ask your, yes, they are allowing you.
I am trying
ARC,
several. Okay, okay, ma'am. Thank you.
ARCTC address code, yes. Okay,
I am actually
please
trying
join.
to text the name and enrollment number, but somehow it is showing me failed. That's why I can't message it.
Okay, you can hear me, so you already you have joined.
Okay,
Please
okay, ma'am.
continue.
Thank you. I am trying to text, but I am getting failed. But I will attend your
All right.
classes from today onwards.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am.
let's
Thank you.
continue. So we were discussing about, yes. So we are discussing about the different types of novels, and we were discussing the adventure novels like Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. Okay. And the adventure novels that deals with masculine adventures in the newly colonized non-European world. For example, Robinson Crusoe or Stevenson's Treasure Island, or take for example Rudyard Kipling's Keen. Often other identified subclasses of the novel are based on differences in subject matter, emphasis, and artistic purpose. There are some other subclasses of novels like the Bildungsroman. Okay, the other day we were talking about the Bildungsroman. Okay, it's a growing of story. It's a growing of story. It's a German in origin. The term is German in origin. It means the novel of formation or the novel of education. The subject of these novels is the development of the protagonist's mind and character, and it passes from childhood through various experiences, and often through spiritual crisis into maturity. So it shows the development of the protagonist from innocence or from it means the protagonist goes into or develop into maturity, which usually involves recognition of one's identity and role in the world. For example, Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, or take for example Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. These novels have been called Bildungsroman. Bildungsroman means it shows the development of the protagonist, the character development of the protagonist. So it's called the novel of formation or the novel of education. Then we have also something called social novel. The social novel emphasizes the influence of the social and economic conditions of an era on shaping the characters and determining events. Often it also embodies an implicit or explicit thesis recommending political and social reform. So the examples are Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. So Uncle Tom's Cabin is an example of social novel. Or Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, or Nadine Gordimer's Burgess' Daughter. All these are social novels, and they focus on shaping the how the social and economic condition they shape the characters and determines the event. Also, such novels recommend certain political and social reform in the society. So some realistic novels make use of events and personages from historical past to add interest and to the narrative, and such novels are called historical novels. So historical novel began in the 19th century with Sir Walter Scott. The name historical novel is associated with the name of Walter Scott. The historical novel not only takes its setting and some characters and events from history, but makes the historical events and issues crucial for the central characters and the narrative. For example, Scott's Ivanhoe, Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. So here history becomes important, and they exercises a significant influence on the characters. Or the historical personalities, they themselves become characters in the narrative. So historical novel. Also some other examples are Tolstoy's War and Peace or Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. These are other examples. Then we have things like regional novel. You must be familiar with Thomas Hardy. And all the novels of Thomas Hardy has its setting the same region, Wessex. So the regional novel emphasizes the setting, speech, and social structure and customs of a particular locality, not merely as local color, but as an important condition, as important conditions affecting the temperament of characters and their ways of thinking, feeling, and interacting. As I told you, one such instance is the Wessex in Thomas Hardy's novel. In fact, when we come to Indian context, R.K. Narayan, all his novels and stories are set in the imaginary town of Malgudi. So we can call it regional novel, same setting, an imaginary town for all the novel. And he has devised places, different places, the typical people within the region. So regional novel is something important. Then when we come to the latter part of 19th, at the beginning of 20th century, we have something called the stream of consciousness novel. Beginning with the second half of the 19th century, the novel displaced all other literary forms in popularity. And the novelistic art has received the devoted attention of some of the greatest masters of modern literature, like Henry James, Proust, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf. And the stream of consciousness fiction, when we read James Joyce, Ulysses, it's the best example of stream of consciousness novel. So here we are discussing different types of novel. Let me sum up very quickly those who have joined later. In the beginning we discussed, today we are discussing three, the MEG 3, Block 3, that is on Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. But before we came to the novel proper, we discussed the meaning of novel, how short story, novella and novel are different. Short story is of very short length, novel is a longer narrative in prose, whereas novella comes in between. It's neither long nor short, like Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Then we discuss different types of novels, the subclasses of novels like picaresque novel, which has a rogue as the central character. Tom Jones is often discussed as a picaresque novel. Then the novel of incident like Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, or psychological novel which shows the character's inner feelings like Richardson's Pamela. We have also epistolary novel, and the best example is Richardson's Pamela and Clarissa Again, where the whole narrative is in the form of letters. Then also critics speak about realistic novel and prose romances, and they distinguish between the two. When we speak about, we can't forget the Gothic novels associated with the name of Walpole, Horace Walpole. And this particular novel we are going to discuss today is often branded as a Gothic novel, that is Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. Then there is something called Didon's romance, which is a growing up story. The character, the protagonist, they grow up. It's a novel of education, and they grow to maturity. Then we have social novels like Uncle Tom's Cabin, or historical novel where history, the personalities from history, they serve as the background and they influence the characters in the novels. And we have examples like Rob Roy or Ivanhoe by Walter Scott. Then regional novel, When we speak of regional novel, we think of Thomas Hardy's Wessex novel. In all his novels, Wessex, the imaginary locality or area of Wessex is the setting. Or in Indian context, we can think of R.K. Naran's Malgudi. Then in 20th century, the stream of consciousness novel gained popularity. And many modern masters of fiction or novels, they wrote stream of consciousness novels like James Joyce's Portrait of an Artist or Ulysses. So this is a kind of introduction to this particular block. I have not started yet the IGNO material. I wanted to just tell you these things because you must know these things. Because our whole paper is on novel. It is on British novel. Novel is an art form, so you must know the different subclasses of novels in this genre. Let's come to the Bronte sisters. We can't just discuss Emily Bronte alone, because when we hear the name of Emily Bronte, we have to talk about the other two sisters.
Ma'am,
Charlotte
excuse
Bronte.
me, ma'am. Ma'am, one
Yes.
question. Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you, ma'am. Sharmishta here. I just wanted to
Yes,
know
sure.
that can a novel be both like Tom Jones? Tom Jones is an example of picaresque novel and Bildungsroman, right?
Yes, yes.
So a novel can be
Of course.
in two categories also.
Yes,
Yeah,
it can come under two categories also.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. A very pertinent question. Good.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the Bronte sisters. There were three sisters: Charlotte Bronte, then this Emily Bronte, and Annie Bronte. Means those who were writers. So the sisters Charlotte, Emily, and Annie are well known as poets and novelists. Like many other female writers of the time, they originally published their poems and novels under the male pseudonyms. Pseudonyms means as writers they used and other names. For example, George Eliot. Okay. George Eliot. When we speak of George Eliot, it seems like a male name, but she was a female and her real name was Mary Ann Evans. She wrote under the pseudonym or false name George Eliot because at that time people were not ready to accept female authors. So in case of these three sisters also, they wrote under male pseudonyms. And for Charlotte Currer, for Emily Ellis, and for Annie Epton. So they published poems and novels under the titles, or all the three sisters, they published poems under the name Poems by Currer, Ellis, and Epton Bell. So Charlotte was Currer Bell, Emily was Ellis Bell, and Annie was Epton Bell. Their stories immediately attracted attention for their passion and originality. Even when you will read Wuthering Heights, if you don't see the name of the author, you can't imagine that it was written by a woman at that time. Or even Jane Eyre, or the novels of George Eliot, Middlemarch. You can't say that it was written by a woman. There is no difference. Okay. Now, Charlotte Bronte was the eldest of the three Bronte sisters who survived into adulthood and whose novels became classics of English literature. Can you name one novel by Charlotte Bronte? It is very famous and often prescribed in PG syllabus. Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre. Published in 1847. Then she also wrote Shirley, Villette, and The Professor. These are four novels by Charlotte Bronte, the eldest sister. Then Annie Bronte was the youngest member of the Bronte literary family. Okay. We are talking about the Bronte sisters who were poets only. Then Annie Bronte, she wrote Agnes Grey. Agnes Grey. It was based upon her experiences as a governess and was published in 1847. Her second and last novel, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, which is considered to be one of the first sustained feminist novels, and it appeared in 1848. So Anne Bronte was also a famous author. You must have heard about these two books. One is Agnes Grey and another is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. So this is about the eldest and the youngest sister. Now let's come to the author we are going to discuss, Emily Bronte. Emily Bronte, as you know, was an English novelist and poet who is best known for her only novel. It was her only novel, Wuthering Heights. And it is also considered as one of the classics of English literature. She also published one book of poetry with her sisters, as I mentioned just now, Charlotte and Annie, titled Poems by Currer, Elise, and Acton Bell. Emily was the third eldest of the four surviving Bronte siblings. Between the youngest Annie and the brother, there was a brother also, Branwell, and she published under the pen name Alice Bell. Alice Bell. Then let's come to Wuthering Heights. It was published in 1847. So it comes to the last part of Romantic age, when we divide English literature into different ages. So 1847 means towards the last part of Romantic age. So Wuthering Heights was published in 1847, and she published it, or Emily Bronte published it under the pseudonyms Alice Bell, and it is Bronte's only finished novel. It was written between 1845 and 1846. In fact, Wuthering Heights and Annie Bronte's Agnes Grey were accepted by the publisher Thomas Newby before the success of her sister Charlotte Bronte's novel Jane Eyre. And after Emily's death, Charlotte edited a posthumous second edition also in 1850. So the second edition of Wuthering Heights was published. It was edited by Charlotte Bronte and it was published in 1850. Wuthering Heights was influenced by Romanticism, including the novels of Walter Scott, as you find here, the Gothic fiction. And it was also influenced by Byron, the poet Byron, romantic poet. And the moonland setting is significant in the whole story. The novel has inspired many adaptations. In fact, all the classic novels have inspired many movies and adaptations, including films, radio and television drama series, and musical, ballet, opera, and songs. So let's come to the story of Wuthering Heights first. So a summary of Wuthering Heights. Let's begin with the opening. In 1801, I am not talking about the characters now. After I tell the story in brief, we will discuss the characters and their relations so that you remember. So in 1801, Lockwood, one character, the new tenant at Thrush Cross Grange in Yorkshire. So Thrush Cross Grange is a place, is an estate in Yorkshire, pays a visit to his landlord Heathcliff. Heathcliff is the central character in Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff, Heathcliff. So he paid a visit to his landlord Heathcliff at his remote woodland farmhouse, Wuthering Heights. So Thrush Cross Grange and Wuthering Heights are two buildings, two different places. And the whole novel centers around these two places, Thrush Cross Grange and Wuthering Heights. So there he meets, Miss Lockwood meets a reserved young woman, Catherine Linton. He also met Joseph, a servant, and Hareton, an uneducated young man who speaks like a servant. So Lockwood meets Catherine Linton, Joseph, and hair turn. And everyone
Ma-
is
Hello,
sullen and inhospitable.
hello,
Yes,
hello. Ma'am, I'm not able to
yes,
understand. Please, ma'am, I'm not able to understand.
okay.
Please, you repeat.
Yes, I will be very slow. Okay, don't worry. I'll repeat things. Once I'll tell the summary first. Again, I'll say the relations so that you will be able to understand. Because we are also going to discuss the characters, the themes, and the narrative techniques. So don't
Okay,
worry. You'll be able
okay.
to understand. Okay. The whole story of Wuthering Heights, it centers around two families. One lives at Wuthering Heights, the Earnshaws. The Earnshaws, they live at Wuthering Heights. And Thrush Grange, it's the house of the Lintons, two families. So in the beginning, the story, it starts at the present, then it moves back. There is a flashback narration. We'll talk about the narrative technique also. It is very important for this particular novel. So here, Lockwood met some people at Wuthering Height, the building. It was snowed in for the night. He read some of the diary entries of the former in-evident Catherine Onsor. Okay, Catherine Onsor is the first heroine. Means Heathcliff and Catherine Onsor. Heathcliff was in love with Catherine Onsor. So she's dead now. And this particular visitor, Lockwood, reads the diary entries of Catherine Onsor, Earnshaw, Catherine Onsor. And he had a nightmare. He had a bad dream in which a ghostly Catherine begs to enter through the window. And Catherine is dead now. And this particular novel comes under Gothic fiction. So the setting is like this. So welcomed by Lockwood, Heathcliff is troubled. Then Lockwood's housekeeper, Nellie Deans, tells him the story of the strange family. Let me repeat. Lockwood is a visitor to Wuthering Heights and he saw something unusual about the house. Even the people there were not normal. Okay. And even at the night, he read or he went through some of the diary entries of Catherine Onsor, who is dead now. And at night, he had a nightmare, a bad dream. And the ghost of Catherine begged to enter through the window. So the next day, he asked the housekeeper, Nelly, Nell, to tell him the story of the strange family. Then we find Nelly's tale. Yes, the whole story is narrated by Nelly now, Nell, the servant woman. Then 13 years earlier, okay, then the story moves back. Okay, the story moves back. 13 years earlier, the Onsors live at Wuthering Heights with their children. So Wuthering Heights was the home of the Onsors, Earnshaws, the Earnshaw family. It was their surname, their second name. So Mr. Onsor and Mrs. Onsor with their children Hindley and Catherine. Hindley is the boy and Catherine is the girl. Hindley and Catherine. And a servant. Nellie was the servant in their home. So returning from a trip to Liverpool, Mr. Onsor brings a young orphan boy whom he named Heathcliff. So when Mr. Onsor returned from a trip, he brought with him an orphan boy. And the boy was dark complexioned, not fair. He named the boy Heathcliff, who is the central character in the story, and treats him as his favorite. Got it? So his own children he neglects. He neglects his own children, Mr. Onsor, especially after his wife dies. And Hindley beats Heathcliff. Hindley was jealous of this Heathcliff because he was the favorite of his father. But Heathcliff gradually becomes best friend with Catherine. Did you understand the story till now? It starts in the present, then the story moves back. There is a flashback. Okay. And the servant Nelly narrates the tale of the Onsa family or the story of Wuthering Heights to the visitor Lockwood. And she says that 13 years earlier, the Onsas lived at Wuthering Heights. Mr. Onsa, Mrs. Onsa, with their children Hindley and Catherine. But when Mr. Onsa went for a tree, when he came back, he brought with him an orphan boy, a dark complexioned orphan boy named Heathcliff. And he named him Heathcliff. See, Heathcliff has no surname or second name. His full name is Heathcliff. And that boy became his favorite. Naturally, Hindley, his own son, was jealous of him and he beat Heathcliff. But Heathcliff becomes friend with Catherine. Then Hindley, or the boy, the son, departs for the university. He went to read in the university, returning as the new master of Wuthering Heights on the death of his father 3 years later. 3 years later, when his father died, he returned. Who? Hindley. Hindley. Sindley. He and his new wife, he was married at that time. His new wife, Frances, allowed Heathcliff to stay in their house, but only as a servant. So Heathcliff and Catherine spy on Edgar Linton and Isabella. This Edgar Linton and his sister Isabella, they belong to the house of Thrush Grange. I told you that there were two big houses. One is Wuthering Heights, another is Thrush Grange. So this Thrush Grange belonged to the Lintons. So Heathcliff and Catherine, they had become much closer, and they spied. They spied on this house. Okay. So Edgar Linton and Isabella. Edgar Linton and Isabella Linton, they belong to the family of Thrush Grange. Thrush Grange was the building, the estate. The children who live nearby at Thrush Grange, and Catherine is attacked by their dog. When they were trying to spy the family, Catherine is attacked by their dog, and the Lintons take her in, sending Heathcliff to Wuthering Heights. When the Lintons visit, Hindley and Edgar make fun of Heathcliff, and a fight ensues. And Heathcliff is shocked, is locked in the attic, and he vows revenge. So now a relationship develops between the two families, the Onsas and the Lintons. The Linton sister and brother. Heathcliff and Catherine had went there to spy them, but Catherine was attacked by the dog, so she had to stay there at the Lintons family. And later, the boy Edgar came with Catherine to leave her at Wuthering Heights. So Hindley and Edgar, they made fun of Heathcliff, and Heathcliff vowed revenge. Got it? Got the story till now? Yes, did you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then we also know that Hindley was married to Frances, and Frances dies after giving birth to a son. And the name of the son was Hareton. In fact, in the story, we will find it's a story of two generations. It's a story of two generations. To the first generation belong Heathcliff, Hindley, Catherine from the Wuthering Heights, and from that other house, Linton, Isabella Linton, and Edgar Linton. Okay, so from the second generation, the first character we are introduced to is Hareton, who is the son of Hindley and Frances. 2 years later, Catherine becomes engaged to Edgar, though she was in love with Heathcliff. She confessed to Nelly, that servant who is narrating the whole story now, that she still loves Heathcliff. and will try to help but cannot marry him because of his low social status. So social status was an important factor in marriage at that time, and also today it continues in a way, but it was very strict at that time. So she said that she cannot marry Heathcliff because of the low social status, and she decided to marry Edgar, Edgar of the other house, that Cross Grange. And she was narrating it to Nellie. There is a misunderstanding actually here. And Heathcliff heard till this, and he left. He left. After that, Catherine told Nellie that in fact Heathcliff and she are one soul in two bodies. He is her soul mate or something, which Heathcliff is not able to hear. So it develops misunderstanding of Catherine's in Heathcliff's heart, and he flees the household. Catherine falls ill. Then Edgar and Catherine marry. 3 years later, Heathcliff unexpectedly returns. He had left after hearing that conversation. And in the meantime, Edgar and Catherine, they marry, and 3 years later, Heathcliff returned. Now he is a wealthy gentleman. He has become wealthy, prosperous. He encourages Isabella's infatuation with him as a means of revenge on Catherine. And who is Isabella? Isabella is the sister of Edgar, whom Catherine has married. So he encouraged the infatuation of Isabella, and encouraged by Heathcliff's constant presence, Edgar cuts off contact. Catherine responds by locking herself in her room. Edgar did not like the constant interference of Heathcliff. And Miss Catherine is not able to satisfy both the men. She responds by locking herself in her room and refusing food. At that time, she was pregnant with Edgar's child. Okay, and she never fully recovers. At Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff gambles with Hindley. Hindley, the owner of Wuthering Heights now. So Heathcliff, now a rich man, gambles with Hindley, who mortgages the property to him to pay his debt. He had borrowed, so he borrowed from Heathcliff to pay back the loan. So Heathcliff allows with Isabella, but the relationship fails and they soon returns. Heathcliff allows with Isabella, the sister of Edgar and the sister-in-law of Catherine, but the relationship did not sustain and they return. When Heathcliff discovers that Catherine is dying, because she was ill, she was pregnant and she was ill and she was dying, Heathcliff visits her in secret. Okay, you have to remember that the central characters here are Heathcliff and Catherine. They were in love with each other. In fact, they were like one soul. There was much passion in their love. But they had not married each other. So finally, Catherine dies shortly after giving birth to a daughter. The name of the daughter is Kathy, again Catherine. Okay, the second Catherine, or the little Catherine, or the young Catherine. And Heathcliff rages, calling on her ghost to haunt him as long as he lives. When Catherine died, he was angry. He said that, "You come to me as a ghost." And Isabella flees south, where she gives birth to Heathcliff's son, the second generation. So Isabella and Heathcliff, their son is Linton. Their son is Linton. Let me repeat it. In the beginning, we find that Hindley and Francis. Hindley is the son of, or is the owner of that Wuthering Heights. And their son is Hareton. Then we find Catherine marries Edgar and gave birth to a daughter. After that, Catherine died. And the name of the daughter is also Catherine. Then the name of the son of Heathcliff and Isabella is Linton. Is Linton. So Hindley dies 6 months later, leaving Heathcliff as the master of Wuthering Heights. Now Heathcliff is the new master of Wuthering Heights. Did you get the story till now? So now Heathcliff has become the new master of Wuthering Heights. And how many characters are dead by now? Catherine is dead, and her brother Hindley is also dead. Then 12 years later, Isabella is dying. Isabella is dying. Whom? Who was the mother of Linton? And the still sickly Linton is brought back to live with his uncle Edgar at the Grange. Thrushcross Grange. If you remember, Edgar and Isabella were brother and sister. And Edgar had married Catherine. So the two families are related. So Linton is a sickly child. After the death of Isabella was dying actually, and his uncle Edgar brought him to the Grange. But Heathcliff insists that his son must still live with him because he was the son of Heathcliff. Cathy and Linton, respectively at the Grange and the Wuthering Heights, gradually develop a relationship. The younger generation. Cathy, the daughter of Catherine, and Linton, the son of Heathcliff. They develop a relationship. They are living at two different houses, Grange and Wuthering Heights. So Heathcliff schemes to ensure that they marry. And on Edgar's death, demands that the couple move in with him. He wanted the couple to move to Wuthering Heights. He becomes increasingly wild. He was not happy with their happiness. He did not want his son and Catherine to live happily. He had vowed revenge. He was taking revenge on everyone. Who? Heathcliff. After the death of Catherine, or before the death of Catherine, because Catherine had rejected him, he believed. So he becomes increasingly wild and reveals that on the night Catherine died, he dug up her grave and ever since has been plagued by her ghost. He had visitations of her ghost, or the ghost of Catherine. When Linton dies, Cathy has no option but to remain at Wuthering Heights. Even from the second generation, that sickly child, the child of Heathcliff and Isabella, Linton died. And his wife, Catherine, had to live at Wuthering Heights. Then, having reached the present day, Nelly's tales conclude. Then we comes to the ending of the story. Lockwood grows tired of the moor. Lockwood is the visitor, and he is listening to this story. It's a story of 30 years back. All these events happened 30 years back, and now the story has come to the present. Now Linton has died and Cathy is living at Wuthering Heights. So 8 months later, he sees Nelly, the narrator, the Lockwood. Lockwood grows tired of the moor and he moved away. He returned 8 months later. And he sees Nelly again. And she reports that Cathy has been teaching the still uneducated Hareton to read. To take revenge on Hareton, Heathcliff behaved with Hareton the way his father behaved with him. He was taking revenge on Hareton. He did not give Hareton the scope to read and write. So Hareton was not educated. He treated him like a servant. Heathcliff was seeing visions of the dead Catherine. He avoided the young people, saying that he could not bear to see Catherine's eyes, which they both shared, looking at him. Miss Catherine, that young Catherine, shared the eyes of her mother. So he was not able to look at her. So he had stopped eating. Who? Heathcliff. Heathcliff had stopped eating, and some days later he was found dead in Catherine's old room. Now Heathcliff is also dead. Throughout, he was revengeful. He took revenge on different characters. He had vowed or promised to himself that he would not let anyone live in peace. But now he had realized that there was no point in taking revenge. And finally, he refused to take food, and his body, his health deteriorated, and he finally died. So this is the story of Wuthering Height. So, yes, somebody was trying to say something. Anybody? No. Okay. So let's sum up the key facts of the narrative. The narrator here is Lockwood, who is a newcomer to the Wuthering Heights, and he narrates the entire novel as an entry in his diary. Okay, that you have to remember. In the beginning, we find that Lockwood is the narrator, and he writes everything in his diary. The story that Lockwood records is told to him by Nellie. Nellie is the servant, and Lockwood writes most of the narrative in her voice. Whatever Nellie had told her, she was recording. He was recording. So we have two narrators, Lockwood, who is writing in his diary, and he recorded what Nellie had told him. So some parts of Nellie's stories are narrated by other characters also, such as when Nellie receives a letter from Isabella, and he recites its content word for word. Then when we talk about the point of view in the story, most of the events of the novel are narrated in Nellie's voice, from Nellie's point of view. So focusing on what Nellie can see and hear, or what she can find out about indirectly. Nellie frequently comments on what the other characters think and feel, and on what their motivations are. But these comments are based on her own interpretations of other characters. So you have to understand the bias in the narration, because the whole thing was narrated by Nellie. The narration may be biased. It was her own perception, her understanding, her interpretations of other characters.
Excuse me,
Then when
ma'am.
we, yes,
Excuse me, ma'am. I am not getting. Can you
yes,
repeat once again this point?
okay. We have, yes, because you get get a lot of questions, or you get often you get questions on the narrative technique. So you must understand about the narration of the story, narration of Wuthering Height. It has two narrators, Lockwood, the visitor to Wuthering Height. He is writing in his diary. He writes the
Up,
whole story in his
up,
diary.
ma'am, point of view,
Lockwood.
ma'am. Point
Yes,
of view from.
okay, your question is on point of view. When we read the narration, often we find some bias. The narrator may be a third person narrator, or the narrator may be an omniscient narrator, not any character, but here we find that one character is narrating the whole story. Miss Nellie is servant, he's narrating the whole story. So when she is narrating, she is frequently commenting on different characters. And she's also telling about other characters' feeling and their thinking. How can that be? She is speculating their motivation, why they were acting like that. So it is wholly based on her interpretations of events and characters. That is point of view. The most part of the story is from the point of view of, is narrated from the point of view of Nellie. Did you understand? We don't find an omniscient narrator here. The narrator of the story is Nellie and also Lockwood. But Lockwood is writing in his diary, and he is recording whatever Nellie has told him. So most of the characters and events are interpreted through the point of view of Nellie only. Did you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
I
Okay.
I got, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Then the tone, welcome. Then the tone. it's not easy to infer the author's attitude towards the event in the novel because everything has been narrated from a servant girl's or servant's point of view. But the melodramatic quality of the first half of the novel suggests that Bronte views Catherine and Heathfield's doomed love as a tragedy of lost potential and wasted patience. However, the outcome of the second half of the novel suggests that Bronte is more interested in celebrating the renewal or the rebirth brought about by the passage of time and the rise of the new generation. Then she is mourning Heathcliff and Catherine. So we have two parts actually. In the first part, it's the story, the Western love story or the lost passion of Heathcliff and Catherine. Both are separated from each other, and Catherine died, and Heathcliff is hunted by her ghost. But in the second part of the story, we find that the writer is hopeful. She celebrates the young generation, the renewal, the rebirth brought about by the passage of time in the character of the young Catherine, the daughter of the older Catherine. And Hareton, after Linton dies, she develops a kind of friendship with Hareton, who was still uneducated, and she tried to educate him. He was uneducated because it was a revenge of Heathcliff on him. Because Hareton's father, Hindley, had treated him badly, so he was taking revenge, and he did not let Hareton to read and write. So we find history repeats. But in the older generation, it was without hope. But in the younger generation, in the relationship of the young Catherine and Hareton, the writer has given hope. She has celebrated renewal and rebirth. Did you get it? Let's come to the questions now. Did you get point of view and all these?
We got.
So
Okay, thank you.
yes, it's also we also categorize Wuthering Heights in romance tradition. Emily Bronte wrote in the romance tradition of the novel that Walter Scott defined as the fittest narrative in prose or verse, the interest of which turns upon the marvelous and the uncommon incidents. Scott distinguished the romance from the novel, where, as he saw it, events are accommodated to the ordinary trend of human events and the modern state of society. So Scott describes romance as a kindred term to novel. However, romances like Wuthering Heights or Scott's own historical romances are often referred to as novels. So the romance is also a kind of novel. And as I told you earlier, other European languages, they don't distinguish between romance and novel. It's the same to them. So Emily Bronte's approach to the novel form was influenced, in addition to Scott, by a Gothic novel. We find elements of Gothic novel in this particular book, Wuthering Heights. And Horace Walpole declared, he who is a propagator of Gothic novel, declared his aim was to combine elements of the medieval romance, which he deemed too fanciful, and the modern novel, which he considered to be too confined to strict realism. So Gothic novel is a blend of the two, the medieval romance and the modern realistic novel. And we find elements of romance, elements of Gothic novels in Wuthering Heights. You may expect questions on those. Then some of the influences that shape the novel Wuthering Heights, or the author Emily Bronte. The periodicals that their father read, the Leeds Intelligencer or the Blackwood's Edinburgh magazine, all these exercised a major source of information for the children, including Emily Bronte. And among other influences was the Romantic movement that includes the Gothic novel, the novel of Walter Scott, and the poetry of Byron. These things had influenced Emily Bronte while writing Wuthering Heights. That the Bronte's fiction is seen by some feminist critics as the prime examples of female Gothic, exploring a woman's entrapment within domestic space and subjection to patriarchal authority, and the transgressive or the dangerous attempt to subvert and escape such restriction, like in case of Catherine. The woman's entrapment in domestic sphere, she wanted to go beyond it. And Emily's Cathy and Charlotte Bronte's Jane Irene are examples of female protagonists in such a role. The female Gothic. So now let's have a look at the fashions of previous years. I hope you have got the story now. To be very brief, it's the story of two families or two houses, Wuthering Heights and Thruster's Grange. And Wuthering Heights was owned by Mr. Onsor and Mrs. Onsor. Their children were Hindley and Catherine. On the other hand, Thruster's Grange, Mr. Linton and Mrs. Linton were the owners. Their children were Edgar and Isabella. Then we find Hindley had gone for education. He came back with his wife Frances. And Hindley and Frances, their son is Hareton. Then Catherine marries Edgar of the other house. Catherine also marries Edgar Linton, though she was in love with Heathcliff. And Heathcliff lived in the Wuthering Heights, because the owner of the Wuthering Heights, Mr. Onsor, had brought him while returning from a tour to Liverpool. He was not his son. He had much affection for the boy and he brought him off. Catherine loved Heathcliff, but Hindley did not like him and treated him like a servant. Then Catherine married Edgar because Heathcliff was below him in social rank. Then Isabella Linton was the sister of Edgar. To take revenge on Catherine, Heathcliff married Isabella. So Catherine and Edgar, they had a daughter, Cathy or Catherine Linton. Then Isabella and Heathcliff, they had a son, Linton Heathcliff. Okay. So in the second generation, we find Cathy, Linton and Hareton. Cathy married Linton, but he died. He was a sickly child. When he grew up also, he died. After that, Cathy came to the Wuthering Heights to live there when Heathcliff was there and all other characters had died.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am. May I audible, ma'am?
Yes. Please
I have a question, ma'am.
Yes, tell it.
Catherine and Heathcliff both are protagonists, na?
Heathcliff and Catherine.
And they are not
Heathcliff
married
is the
to each other.
protagonist. No, they are not married to each other.
So how after that it is also possible both are the protagonist and heroine?
Yes, it's not necessary that the hero and the heroine will end up marrying each other. In many other stories, we find that. It's not always necessary that every story has a happy ending.
And after that, Heathcliff taking revenge on Heathcliff also. Catherine also.
Not actually on Catherine, because when Heathcliff returned, Catherine was sick and very soon she died after giving birth to a child. He was actually, when you see the psychological development of Heathcliff, you find that he was taking revenge on himself. He was constantly hunted by the ghost of Catherine. He was constantly thinking of Catherine till the end, though he was married to Isabella and that marriage was a failure. Even the marriage of Catherine and Edgar was a failure. Even at different places we find that Catherine mentioned he and Heathcliff were one soul. Even Heathcliff mentioned that he and Catherine were one soul. They had a great passion for each other.
And ma'am,
So
one
let's,
thing. Oh, hello, ma'am.
yes, yes.
One thing. When the Catherine not accept the proposal of Heathcliff, then he was taking revenge. And if he taking revenge, how he was a protagonist?
See, there was no point of nobody proposed to nobody. Means he did not
Okay.
propose to Heathcliff did not propose to Catherine, or Catherine did not say that he loved Heathcliff. She loved Heathcliff because there was a conversation between that servant Nellie and Catherine, in which Catherine said that she wanted to marry Edgar. Okay. She wanted to marry
Okay.
Edgar
Okay.
because Heathcliff was
Thank
much
you.
below her in social rank.
Okay. Okay.
And after that, at that point, he left. Who? Heathcliff left. He could hear the conversation till that point. But after that, Catherine told that she and Heathcliff are one soul. She has a great affinity with Heathcliff. Both were very passionate about each other. That point or that conversation, Heathcliff missed. And from that point, all the misunderstanding ensued. Now let's come to the previous year's questions. There is a power here, and I fear that soon we may be disconnected. So let's move very fast. So when we see the previous year's questions, there is a question: examine the narrative technique employed in Wuthering Heights. I told you it's important because it has a different narrative method. Then, do you think Heathcliff is really a gift of God, illustrated with examples from Wuthering Heights? The next question again on narrative technique. Discuss the narrative technique in Wuthering Heights, June 18. It was a question in 2018 June. Then discuss Heathcliff as a Byronic hero, December 16. This is a question. Or in what way is the concept of marriage central to Wuthering Heights? Again, a theme, concept of marriage. Then Heathcliff and Hareton have been portrayed as characters with similar experiences but different responses. So it's a question on character. Then how far do you think Catherine conforms to or deviates from the societal norms of the times? Conforms in Wuthering Heights, the character of Catherine. Point out the importance of the issue of marriage in the Victorian age, a special reference to Wuthering Heights. Here the question of class comes in marriages and how marriages were failures or success is all those things you have to deal with. It's again a question on theme. Then discuss
Excuse me, ma'am.
Catherine's regions.
Ma'am, hello.
Yes,
Hello.
yes,
This novel is written in the Victorian age, in the period of Victorian age. Hello.
no, not exactly Victorian age. Towards the last part of Romantic age.
Okay.
Towards the last part of Romantic
But
age, because
but
the date of
we have
publication was 1847. 1847. Okay.
but
We
but
date the Romantic age from the publication of Lyrical Ballad from 1798 to 1850, the death of Wordsworth. Sorry, 1850. And then from
but
1850 onwards, we recognize it as the Victorian age. So it's very closer to the Victorian age.
we find a question that what are the important issue of Victorian age? We have a find
Yes,
question. So that's why I'm
yes,
asking,
because
ma'am.
the issue of marriage, yes, 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 because we can't categorize fiction in different compartments, in strict compartments. When we see the date of publication, it's very close to the Victorian age, and even the dates are different for different critics and different writers. So in this particular, it is very close to the Victorian age. So this has been treated as a also as from the Victorian age, not exactly Victorian age, as in case of Jane Austen.
Okay,
How
ma'am.
to
Thank you,
categorize
ma'am.
Jane Austen? Okay. Because in case of Jane Austen also, she lived through the 18th century, last part of 18th century, but she published her novel in the first part of 19th century, the Romantic age. So there is an issue or a conflict in categorizing her with or to link her with a particular age. Here also, because the novel was published in 1847, we can also, it can, or the issue of marriage in Victorian age can be, the important issue of marriage in Victorian age with special reference to Wuthering Heights can be a question. Did you get it?
Yes, I got, man.
Yes?
I got.
Okay. Okay. Then the next
Thank you.
question, discuss Catherine's reasons for marrying Edgar in Wuthering Heights. The issue of class and marriage. Does the novel Wuthering Heights present Heathcliff as a realistic character, or is he only symbolic? Give reasons. Then the next question is on discuss Wuthering Heights as a novel of passion and revenge. Passion and revenge. Comment on the narrative structure of Wuthering Heights. The next question is again on the narrative technique employed in Wuthering Heights. Then, do you think Nelly is a reliable narrator? Support your answer with evidence from the text. This was what I was talking about. Because the whole story is narrated by Nelly. Is she a reliable narrator? Because all the characters, their feelings, their actions are interpreted by Nelly or Selwyn. So there is question mark on the reliability of the narration. Then in what ways is Wuthering Heights a psychological novel? The location and setting of Wuthering Heights is a character in itself. Do you agree? It was a question in December 18. Then June 19, the question was, comment on Catherine as a subversive heroine in Wuthering Heights. In Gothic novel, we find that the heroes and the heroines, the protagonists and the different characters, they don't conform to the traits, the qualities normally we find in social or realistic fiction. So let's begin. As I told you earlier also, you often get questions which are based on themes, characters and narrative techniques. Let's begin with the characters. Just one or
Ma'am,
two
1
we
second.
will discuss.
Ma'am, 1 second. One
Yes.
question, ma'am. Narrative
Yes.
technique and narrative structure are not same, right?
No, not so. When we talk of narrative structure, that means plot.
Okay.
Structure is plot.
Means how the story moves about, right? How
Yes,
the
yes.
stone gets rolling.
How it started, then how it reached the climax, then the anticlimax, and at last the resolutions of all the problems. That
Okay,
is
ma'am. And
structure.
narrative technique means how Nelly is
Narrating the whole in the story. Yes.
so in that we will talk about only Nelly's part, or we will also incorporate in it in Isabella's letter and
You can. Yes, you have to incorporate.
Lockwood's dreams and everything we will incorporate in the answer.
Yes. Of course.
Okay, ma'am.
But make it very clear in the beginning and in the conclusion.
Okay, ma'am.
The introduction
Okay, the focus should be in the introduction. We will be sticking to the question, what is being asked,
Yes.
and then we will go about with the flow of the question, and at the conclusion, we will again stress on whether if it is the narrative technique, we will write about the narrative technique. If it is narrative structure, we will write about the narrative structure, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Well, so when we talk about the character of Heathcliff, he is an orphan brought to live in Wuthering Heights by Mr. Onsor, and Heathcliff falls into an intense, unbreakable love with Mr. Onsor's daughter, Catherine. And after Mr. Onsor dies, his resentful son Hindley abuses Heathcliff and treats him as a servant that we know. Because of her desire for social prominence, Catherine marries Edgar Linton instead of Heathcliff. And Heathcliff's humiliation and misery prompts him to spend most of the rest of his life seeking revenge on Hindley and Catherine. And their respective children also. He did not stop with that. Even he took the revenge to the next generation. Then we find that he is a powerful, a fierce, and a cruel man, Heathcliff. And he acquires a fortune. And he uses his powers of will to acquire both Wuthering Heights and Trust Grange. In the end of the story, we find, or towards the end of the story, we find that he is the master of both the houses. Then about Catherine, we find she is the daughter of Mr. Onslow and his wife Mrs. Onslow, and she falls powerfully in love with Heathcliff, the orphan Mr. Onslow brings home from Liverpool. But Catherine loves Heathcliff so intensely that she claims they are the same person. However, her desire for social advancement motivates her to marry Edgar Linton, instead of Heathcliff. And she's free-spirited, she's beautiful, she's spoiled, and she's often arrogant. She's also given to fits of temper, and she's torn between her wild passion for Heathcliff and her social ambition. And she brings misery to both the men who love her, both Edgar and Heathcliff. We have also the characters of Edgar Linton, Nellie Dean, Lockwood, young Catherine or Hareton Onslow, then Linton Heathcliff, who died. Then we have Hindley Onslow, Isabella Linton. You have to do one thing. You first draw a family. When you find that the novel has a lot of characters, it will be easy for you to understand when you draw a family tree. So you draw a family tree for both the family, Onslow and the Lintons. Mr. and Mrs. Linton, Mr. and Mrs. Onslow, their children, their wives, their children. You draw a kind of chart, flow chart, so that you'll remember things and you'll be able to understand. Did you get me?
Yes,
and also
yes,
you'll be able to follow, and you also will be able to follow the chronology of events.
Yes,
because here in this story we find it is in flashback. The story goes back 30 years earlier when Nellie narrates the story. So it's better you find you make it convenient for yourself. When you read it for the first time, after some days, you may forget the whole story. So it's better to record something. You write the summary, you highlight the main points, the chronology of events, and also draw family trees for all these novels, so that you will not forget and you will not be confused.
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me.
Then let's come to the themes. What are the themes? Yes.
No, ma'am.
Yes,
You finish. Because the time is running short. Ma'am, you finish the theme.
Okay, we will quickly finish within 10 seconds. 10 minutes. Then we will discuss. Yes. Then let's come to the themes. The themes. It's a greatest love story of all time, though not successful. Yet some of the novel's admirers consider it not a love story at all, but an exploration of evil and abuse. Because when we see the character of Heathcliff, many people find it it's an exploration of evil because the person took revenge and all that as curious were found. So then the destructiveness of love that never changes is a theme here. Catherine and Heathcliff's passion for one another seems to be the center of Wuthering Heights. Given that it is stronger and more lasting than any other emotion displayed in the novel. And that is the source of most of the major conflicts that the structure of the novel's plot. As she tells Catherine and Heathcliff's story, when Nellie tells the story of Catherine and Heathcliff, she criticizes both of them. She condemns their passion as immoral because they were not married to each other. But this passion is obviously one of the most compelling and the most memorable aspects of the book. So love is one theme. Then, moreover, we find that first Catherine and Heathcliff's love is based on their shared perception that they are identical. For example, I told you earlier that Catherine declares famously, I am Heathcliff. At one point of the story, she told, I am Heathcliff. While Heathcliff, often Catherine's death, wails, he moans that he cannot live without his soul. That means Catherine was his soul. So their love was that intense, though it did not succeed. Then we also find the precariousness of social class. Class is important here, social class. Consideration of class status often crucially inform the character's motivation in Wuthering Heights. For example, Catherine's decision to marry Edgar, so that she will be the greatest woman of the neighborhood. She will move in social class, move upward in social class. It's the most obvious example in the whole book. So we have things like social class, marriage, revenge, love, all these are themes of the book. Then motives. Motives I told you earlier also, M-O-T-I-F-S. Motives are recurring structures and contrast and the literary devices that can help to develop and inform the text major themes. So when we read the story or a novel, when we see those recurring structures or the contrast between two scenes and the recurring literary devices, the images, the symbols, we find the connections. And it helps the story to move on, and it also informs us about the major themes. For example, here the doubles. Emily Bronte organizes her novel by arranging its elements, the characters, the places, the themes into pairs. Catherine and Heathcliff are closely matched in many ways, and they see themselves as identical. They are a pair. The two houses, Wuthering Heights and Cross Grange, they represent opposing world and values. They form a contrasting pair. The novel is not one but two distinctly different, and it's also, we have to remember that it's a story of two generations, a pair. The novel is not one but two distinctly different generations, narrators, Nellie and Mr. Lockwood. There are two narrators of the story, Mr. Lockwood, who is writing his diary, and Nellie, who has narrated the story to Mr. Lockwood. And Mr. Lockwood wrote in the language, in the same language Nellie told him. Then we find a number of repetitions in the story. Repetition are such a motive in the story. We find history repeating in Wuthering Heights in the younger generation. So time seems to run in cycle, and the horror of the past repeat themselves in the present. The way that names of the characters are recycled, so that the names of the characters of the younger generation seem only to be resembling the names of their parents. It leads the readers to consider how the plot elements also repeat themselves. Okay, the story of elder Catherine and the story of younger Catherine, it's like history repeating, though the endings are different. Because in case of younger Catherine, we find a ray of hope in her relation with Hareton. But Heathcliff and Catherine, though they deeply loved each other, they died. We also find the conflict between nature and culture in the whole story. Then we also find symbols like symbols are objects, characters, figures, or colors, which are used to represent abstract ideas or concepts. Here the moor, because the landscape is of the moor in the Wuthering Heights, and those setting the symbolic importance. The landscape is comprised primarily of moors, which is wide and wild like Heathcliff, but infertile. So we can associate it with the relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine. Then we find Ghost because it is a Gothic tale. So Ghost appear throughout Wuthering Heights,
Excuse me,
as they
ma'am.
do in most of the. Yes.
Hello, ma'am. After
Yes,
the
tell.
death, after death of Catherine,
Hmm.
Catherine became a ghost.
Yes, she came regularly to Heathcliff as a ghost. Ghost. Okay. Heathcliff is hunted by the ghost of Catherine. So these are certain symbols. These are certain symbols. And when we go to the IGNOU material, we have different units. In unit 1, we find the background to Wuthering Heights. Unit 1 of IGNOU material, we find background to Wuthering Heights, like the dates, the location of Wuthering Heights, what can be the possible location, the association of this building, this imaginary building of Wuthering Heights to real buildings. Then we find that it was set against the background of industrial revolution. You can just check the beginning, the contents of Unit 1, dates, location of Wuthering Height, industrial evolution, then the changing society of the time, then romanticism and rebellion. So the socio-economic, political and cultural environment of mid-19th century England is of immense importance to our study of the novel. That we have to understand. Okay, the context is as
Excuse me,
important
ma'am.
as the text. Yes?
Hello, excuse me, ma'am.
Yes,
Can you
yes.
please discuss these two questions in a brief way? Heathcliff as a Byronic hero and Catherine as a subversive heroine. It would be of
Okay,
great help.
okay, we would come to that. We would come to
Oh,
that.
okay, thank you, ma'am.
I'll quickly finish. You will find it in that IGNOU material itself. It is there. And remember that the questions you get, all the questions, means the answers to all the questions are in the IGNOU material. You just follow the uh, content part of all the units. Suppose in unit 1, in the beginning, you get certain keywords like location of Wuthering Heights, industrial revolution, changing society, romanticism, rebellion, and you can relate these things to the question. For example, in Unit 2, the problems of the narrative scheme of the novel, who is the narrator, narrative technique, comparison with cinema. So here you can find a question on the narrative technique of, or you can prepare your answer on the narrative technique of Wuthering Heights from Unit 2. When you read Unit 1, you can know about the background. Okay. And here the Byronic Heathcliff has been mentioned in Unit 1. So the social cultural background, it provides us with a background for the critical study of the novel as a product of its culture in a particular time and place. So what is Byronic hero? We have to understand. Then we have to relate the elements of this particular book to that. This is not to suggest that the novel is relevant only within the historical context. But let's read between the lines and discern how the author is able to question many of the values and attitude of the time and how many of the questions are still relevant. While reading Wuthering Heights, you will find the social, economic conditions of the time. And it's not that the author follows it or conforms it. Sometimes the author questions it. Okay.
Ma'am, excuse me. Ma'am, Anjali ma'am, the
Yes.
motives that you were talking about, the pairs that had been made through these two generations, the houses, the mood, the nature, unfortunately, these motives are not there in the IGNOU material. Then,
Not there.
yeah,
Motives
ma'am.
has not been discussed in the. You can find these things to make your answer interesting. You can find other materials from the internet also and add to your story. As I told you in the
Okay.
last class also, first read the background.
Hmm.
You read the background of 19th century because the book has been written in the middle of 19th century, isn't
Hmm.
it? In
Yes.
1847. So in the middle of you read the background of the period so that you will get an idea about the social, cultural, and literary happening of the period. And you will be able, and you have to read about the development of Gothic novel because the book is classified as a Gothic novel. Then you have to read the summary, the story. You can get the book, the text of Wuthering Heights from the internet. You can read the whole book, and if somebody does not find time, for the time being, one can manage with the summary also. But you must read the text. You
Yes,
must
ma'am.
read the text
I read
because
the text when. Yeah, ma'am. I read the text,
Yes,
but
good.
then I forgot everything. And
Very good. Very good.
I just have one question. I have actually 4 questions. The number one is that
Yes.
whatever book that we are reading or I will be reading, I will borrow one from the library. Is that the same book that
Yes.
Emily Bronte has written, or is it the edited version by Charlotte
Different
Bronte?
editions.
Edited
Yes,
edition.
different editions come. Different
Okay,
editions
ma'am.
come
Okay,
because the old books are.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
My next question is, though I had read the book, but then I forgot. Actually, I really want to know, as of now, reading again after so many years, why does Earnshaw bring Heathcliff along with him? Is it
It
mentioned
was
in the
not
book?
mentioned actually.
Okay.
No, he brought him just in goodwill, in good faith or goodwill. Just brought him, and he developed a kind of affection for him.
Okay, ma'am. And my third question is,
And he loved him more than
I was reading the initial part of the IGNOU study material. This book is sometimes compared with fierce poetry. Ma'am, what is fierce poetry?
What poetry? I didn't get it.
Ma'am, it is there in the IGNOU material, in the introduction part, it is often compared with fierce poetry. Fierce
Fear.
means fierce poetry, FIERCE.
Achha, fierce poetry, fierce poetry. Okay,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
it is full of passion and revenge and fears. Fears, you can take the see, when we read literature, sometimes we have to be analytical. Uh, Not sometimes, every time we have to be analytical because we interpret text. Fierce poetry, we find poetry means passages that resemble poetry in descriptions of landscape, in description of passion, emotion, and fierce for the word because it is full of passion. As you find from the characters itself, the character of Heathcliff itself, full of revenge, passion, and that is these are elements of Gothic novel actually.
Is it like the fierce passion that is being talked about here?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Poetry means the language. Sometimes there is no clear demarcation between prose and poetry. When an author is inspired, even in prose pieces, we find passages full of poetry, isn't it?
Okay.
Have you marked?
Yes, ma'am. I'll Google it, and then if I have a question, may I ask you tomorrow also?
Yes, sure, sure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Even you will in the IGNOU material, in that narration, in unit 2, the problem of narrative, what is narrative and narrative scheme in the novel, you will get a chapter wise, the problem of the narrative means chapter wise summary type.
Yes, ma'am.
Each
Page number
chapter,
17.
I don't know what's the page number, but there is a page there where you
ma'am.
get everything chapter wise. The events,
Yes, ma'am.
you
It
can
is
follow
given
the
here.
events chapter wise. In that particular unit, it is page 3. Then unit 3 is about the character of Heathcliff. You will get an elaborate analysis of the character of Heathcliff in unit 3.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes?
Hello, ma'am. In Unit 3,
Yes?
that narrator mentioned that that Heathcliff was a gift of God. So, how he was a gift of God, ma'am?
Yes, that we have to find out.
Okay.
That we have to find out. How he was a gift of God. And there were 2 other questions also on theme. Somebody had
Okay.
asked how the heroine is a subversive heroine. So, gift of God is it's the title of the Unit 3. And Heathcliff is one of the most discussed characters in literature. He is intensely passionate, wild, and revengeful. He forces a sympathetic response from the reader. And there has been debate on Heathcliff's status, whether he is a villain or a hero. And I see Heathcliff as a rebel. Even in the book, it has been mentioned that he is a rebel. He constantly resists acceptability. He will neither be good nor cultured in the way the society of the time demands. He is natural, true to himself. He defines his own moral universe and asserts it. And he also exposes the unnaturalness and the hypocrisy of social practice around him. And in that sense, he is potentially subversive and anti-hero. In the same way, Catherine is subversive and anti-heroine, you can say. Because though she was in love with the hero Heathcliff, she told she cannot marry him because he was his social inferior, subversive, transgressive, different, not the normal, usual we find in fiction or in novels. Gift of God, through the character of Heathcliff, actually Emily Bronte intellectually engages herself with the Christian moral universe of good and evil. And he's basically good. And when for that you have to also read something about the biography of the author, their upbringing, because their father was a clergyman. So it was natural that influence, the Christian moral universe, was on her novel or on her own personality and her writing. So when she conceived the character of Heathcliff, it was also about the moral universe and gift of God, she said. Then let me quickly finish, then we'll come back to that. Then Catherine. Okay. Unit 4 is about the character of Catherine. You look like a lady now. So in Wuthering Heights, it is the question of marriage is also dealt with in Unit 4. In Wuthering Heights, it is debatable if marriage is central to the plot, but there is no doubt that the issue of marriage poses disturbing questions. For example, Catherine does not marry Heathcliff, he marries Edgar. Or Heathcliff marries Isabella, whom he does not love, but who is infatuated by him. Or Heathcliff forces Cathy to marry Linton, whom she does not love, but who is loved by Linton in a selfish way. Or Cathy marries a reformed Hareton towards the end. So all this, or Heathcliff marries Catherine symbolically in death. Most of the marriages in the novel end in separation. There are separation due to death, and there are separation because of mental incompatibility. Before death also they separated, like Isabella and Heathcliff. So what makes Catherine an unforgettable character is her ability to be on the side of the underdog and assert her voice for justice. She's always on the side of the victim. Or Catherine may not be the heroine who is in search of her identity or destiny, like other heroines in novels by Charlotte Bronte or George Eliot. But Catherine's is a woman's anguished voice, a voice that asserts its independence as well as its revolt against male codification and control. And we find hers as a hunting presence, always to remind of what has been denied to her. So she is a subversive heroine, not like the other beautiful, delightful, happy to be married heroines of fiction. Did you understand? And Unit 5 is about Wuthering Heights.
Excuse me, ma'am.
50 years later. Yes?
Excuse me, ma'am. Then being
Yes.
subversive actually means she is not like the other stereotype heroines of other novels of that time. She is rebellious.
Yes.
She
Yes.
speaks for her own rights. and to some extent she
Yes.
practices her rights, which is an indication towards establishment of feminism, right?
Very good.
In this
Yes.
way, can I interpret it?
Yes. Yes. You made a very good
Okay.
point. Good.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And please, if possible, throw some light on Byronic hero. I am going through the study material, but if you could help, it would be great for all of us.
Okay. Shall we keep it to the next class, because
Okay,
there
ma'am.
is no power here, and my battery is draining actually.
Okay, ma'am. No
Byronic
issues.
hero,
But
yes, that's the typical, that's the typical kind of hero. And Byron, the name is associated with so many things. Even the influence of Byron was much on other novels. We find that Byronic hero mentioned. Have you gone through Disgrace by J.M. Courtesy? In that particular novel also, the protagonist, the main character, he behaved like a Byron. The name Byron is associated with intense passion. Actually, it is associated with intense passion and Translation also. So there are certain connotation attached to a certain name. So
Hello,
we
ma'am.
treat
Excuse me,
Byronic
ma'am.
hero in that way.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Byrony
Yes.
or irony, ma'am? Byrony means?
Byron, yes. Byron, the writer, the poet, romantic poet Byron.
Lord
Okay.
Byron.
So today shall we stop?
Yes,
Keep
ma'am.
your questions. The battery is running low. There is a signal.
Okay,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Tomorrow we will
No
ask
Okay,
the
problem.
ma'am. Okay,
question.
ma'am.
Tomorrow
Tomorrow
you keep your question. Yes,
okay,
tomorrow
okay,
we'll discuss
Okay,
more,
ma'am.
and
okay.
tomorrow we'll focus on Charles Dickens' Great Expectation. And again, I tell you, don't be confused about the characters. Make a list of the characters and list the relations also, so that you will not be
Okay.
confused. And also in one page, write a kind of summary, and or you get a print of the summary of the novel, and you highlight the
Okay.
important points or important events there, so that you will not forget the story, because these are
hello,
all
ma'am.
fact books. And when
Uh,
we
Hello,
read
ma'am.
at a stage, yes,
Hello. Sorry to interrupt,
uh,
ma'am. Actually, I missed the first class that was on Tom Jones. So, may I ask a question in the next class, that is tomorrow or after that, from that novel?
oh, okay, tomorrow we'll keep last half an hour for discussion. Okay, is that
Okay,
okay?
ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, let's
Okay.
stop today then. I hope you got the story and the characters, themes of Withering Height, and you have got an overall idea of the whole novel. Did
Yes,
you?
ma'am. Ma'am, every day we can keep the
Yes.
last half an hour for question answers. That would be a
Yes,
very
we will
nice
do.
idea.
Yes, we will do that
Rather than interrupting you in
from the next
between.
class. Yes, yes, we will do that. Okay.
Yes.
So let's stop today.
Yes.
Meet in the
Okay,
next
ma'am.
class.
Okay, ma'am. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Have a good day, ma'am.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye.